Hi everyone. I hope you had a great spring break and that you're doing well. I know it's kind of a bummer we couldn't travel if you had plans for spring break and had to cancel them. I hope that you still had a good break and found some fun things to do. Thankfully we had some good weather. I know I was outside a lot. I've been doing puzzles and reading and just finding some things to do. So I hope that you're all staying busy and having fun. So now with school officially being online for the rest of the year, you are going to be seeing a lot more of Mrs. Demand now. So she's going to be taking back over and you're going to see less of me. So I will still be around to help and support you all, but I will be taking kind of a step back and Mrs. Demand will be taking over. So today though, we are going to be reading some stories. These are called Aesop's Fables. So Aesop was a slave back in ancient Greece, and he also was a storyteller to pass the time. So he told hundreds and hundreds of stories. They were short stories, and over time they were written down and put in books like this. So this has more than one story. There's actually about 80 stories in this one book, and they're short stories that are called fables. So a fable is a short story that has a moral to it. A moral is a theme or kind of a message that they're trying to get across to you that you can apply to your own life. So kind of like a good advice piece that you can find in these stories. And fables normally use animals, creatures, kind of like fairy tales to get the message across. So we are going to read a couple of these today. And the first one you probably have heard before. It is The Tortoise and the Hare. This book does not have pictures, so you're going to have to use your imagination for that. Okay, so the first one is The Tortoise and the Hare. A conceited hare boasted about her speed to everyone who would listen. "Not even the north wind is as fast as I am," she declared. "No animal in the forest could beat me in a race." Now, a tortoise nearby grew tired of such bragging. "We've all heard you talk, but we've never seen you run," she said. "Why don't you race with me, and then we will see who is the fastest." The hare burst out laughing. "I could beat you standing still," she exclaimed. But she agreed that they would race to an old oak tree around the bend in the road. In an instant they were off, the hare soon out of sight, and the tortoise plodding step by patient step. "I've practically won already," thought the hare as she dashed around the bend in the road. "I could stretch out here and take a little rest and still beat the tortoise by a mile." And she settled down by the side of the road. She planned to jump up and finish the race the minute she saw the tortoise. But the grass was so soft and the sun was so warm that before the hare realized it, she had fallen asleep. Meanwhile, the tortoise continued on. Slowly she came around the bend and in the road and passed the sleeping hare. She was only a few feet from the oak tree when the hare woke up from her nap. Seeing the tortoise so close to the finish, the hare leaped up and tore along the road as if the hounds were after her. But she was too late. Before she could reach the oak tree, the tortoise had already been declared the winner by the crowd of cheering bystanders. Slow and steady wins the race. So that last sentence that they have, slow and steady wins the race, they have italicized, and that's probably to kind of define that, to make it stand out so that we know that's the moral of the story. It was the last sentence, slow and steady wins the race. So if that's the moral of the story, we can apply it to our own lives. It's not talking literally about only racing, right? We can apply it to our lives. Slow and steady wins the race. Sometimes it's not about how fast you can do something, but maybe how well you can do it. So that's a good example of how we can take a moral from a story and apply it to our own lives. our next story, or in our next fable, I should say, is The Lion and the Mouse. One day, while a mouse was creeping through the tall grass, she happened upon a great lion asleep in the sun. I might see for quite a long distance from the top of that beast's back, she thought. Boldly, the mouse crept up the lion's flank and scampered along his spine. The tickling of the mouse's tiny feet woke the lion. With one swipe, he snatched her in his claws and dangled her by her tail in front of his nose. For daring to interrupt my nap, the lion growled, you will be my next meal. Oh, please, the terrified mouse gasped. Let me go, and I promise one day I'll help you in return. The lion shook with laughter. Impossible, he roared. But the proud animal was so amused by the idea that he allowed the mouse to go. Not long after, the lion was caught in a trap set by some clever hunters. No matter how the powerful beast thrashed and fought, he could not free himself from the strong net that raised him from the ground. No other animal dared come near to help for fear of the hunters. But when the brave little mouse heard his cries, she remembered her promise and hurried to his side. Quickly she gnawed through the sturdy ropes with her sharp teeth until the lion could escape to freedom. You see, she said, there are times when even a tiny mouse can help a lion. Even the strongest can sometimes use the help of the smallest. So the moral of this story was that even the strongest can sometimes use the help of the smallest. Okay. And our third and final story today is called The Oak and the Reeds. A magnificent oak stood proudly by a quiet pool, and at its feet grew a cluster of modest, slender reeds. Whenever a great wind blew, the tree stood as strong as a mountain, reaching its limbs high to the sky. But the reeds would bend and bow low to even the gentlest breeze. No wind can ever make me bow my head, the proudest oak boasted. Wait and see, whispered the reeds as they swayed with the wind. Wait and see. Soon there came a furious storm. The reeds were shaken and tossed in the gusts, first this way, then that way. The mighty oak tree stood tall and straight, defying the storm. But the winds came faster and fiercer, and at last the oak tree's roots were torn from the ground, and it fell with a terrible crash. When the storm passed and the morning light came, the reeds stood tall again. You see, they said softly to the fallen oak, we bowed to the wind and we survived. You resisted and perished. So it is better to bend than to break. Okay, so there's many more fables, and I might read a couple more of these on another time, but you can see that they kind of have a common theme. There's a story with a problem and a solution, which we can relate to our own lives and learn from the morals of these stories. So make sure you are still reading at home. If you don't have, or if you've already read all the books, or if you don't have too many books at home, we have those links on Schoology for some online resources that you can read. Keep up with your math and all those other links in there. You guys are doing an awesome job. I know we will have more details for you all soon on what's to come. And I will be back with more stories another day. All right, guys, have a good day.